The voice is barely above a whisper, but it carries the weight of a lifetime of choices and regrets. In a leaked audio clip that surfaced just days ago, Prince Harry responds to the question that has haunted the British public for years. Will you ever bring your children back to the UK? Will there be any forgiveness from the family you walked away from? I honestly don't know anymore. It's too soon, too painful, too raw. We hoped the decision would go our way. We thought family meant forgiveness, no matter what. But the doors, they've been slammed shut for good. I was wrong about so much. These words didn't come from a polished interview or a Netflix special. They were captured in a private moment, leaked to the world like a final confession. And they set the stage for what would become one of the most explosive weeks in modern royal history. But this wasn't just personal heartbreak. It was the opening act of a public execution of hope. You may fool the tabloids for a season. You may charm the public with tearful apologies and well-timed vulnerability, but you do not fool the crown forever. Those were the exact, chilling words delivered by Princess Anne in her rare, unscripted public statement from the Balmoral estate earlier this week. The setting was stark, crisp Scottish air, gray skies, no smile, no softening. Anne stood alone, her voice steady as steel wrapped in velvet. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. She simply invoked one of the oldest tales in the book, the shepherd boy who cried wolf. "We've all heard the alarm bells ringing," she said, repeating the phrase deliberately, letting each word land like a stone. "Time after time we've been told the wolves are coming. Time after time no wolves appeared, so we learned to stop listening. And now, this latest cry for help, even if it's genuine, comes far too late. The village has moved on." The statement wasn't personal. It was institutional. It wasn't emotional. It was final. For Prince Harry, who had quietly returned to London earlier this month, carrying the fragile ember of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the family could heal, Anne's words were the bucket of ice water that extinguished it completely. Let's go back to where this latest chapter began, early January 2026. Harry arrived in London under the glare of his ongoing legal fight against Associated Newspapers, the publishers behind the Daily Mail. He had already scored a partial victory in his case against Mirror Group newspapers, and insiders close to his legal team described him as quietly emboldened. He wasn't just fighting for privacy anymore, one source revealed. He believed this trial could be the symbolic breakthrough, the moment the tabloids were humbled, and more importantly, the moment the palace doors cracked open again. He saw it as a turning point for everything. Privately, Harry had taken a step few expected. He sent a formal but deeply personal request to Prince William and Princess Catherine. It wasn't through lawyers or intermediaries. It was handwritten, a simple, emotional appeal for a private meeting. No cameras, no press releases, just brothers, just family, a chance to rebuild, a chance to forgive. The message reportedly included direct lines like, "We've lost too much time already. Let me come to Windsor. Let us talk like we used to." The response? Nothing. Worse than nothing, evasion. On January 16th, just one day before Harry's scheduled arrival in the capital, William and Catherine quietly boarded a royal jet bound for Aberdeen, Scotland. From there, they were photographed visiting youth programs near Inverness, smiling, engaging, looking every inch the future of the monarchy. Kensington Palace issued the standard line. This was a long-planned commitment, but the timeline told a different, crueler story. If they had waited just 24 hours, the meeting Harry begged for could have taken place. Instead, the Wales family made their position unmistakable. No meeting, no conversation, no second chance. The snub was not accidental. It was surgical. Throughout the court proceedings in London, Meghan Markle was nowhere to be seen. No appearance in the gallery, no public show of support, no statement released through her team. The official excuse: parental duties and a previously scheduled professional engagement. But multiple court insiders confirmed the truth. No formal request to attend was ever made. No effort to stand beside her husband was visible. Nothing. Then came January 20. Meghan resurfaced, not in London, not in support of Harry, but at a high-profile, closed-door wellness summit in Palo Alto, California. She arrived in a crisp white pantsuit, poised and magnetic. Notably absent from the photos that quickly circulated online, a wedding ring. The internet erupted in speculation. The event itself raised even more eyebrows. It was sponsored by a Saudi-linked tech foundation, and in the background of elite circles, one name kept surfacing: MS, a mysterious figure long rumored to be one of Meghan's most significant benefactors and strategic allies. "Let's stop pretending this is just networking," a former aide to the couple said bluntly in an off-the-record conversation. "These appearances are positioning plays, chess moves on a global board, and Harry is starting to see the full picture, and it's not pretty." The contrast couldn't have been starker. While Harry sat in a London courtroom fighting for his reputation and quietly pleading for family reconciliation, Meghan was building her independent global brand on the other side of the world. And in the quiet corners of royal memory, another painful what-if began to resurface. Lady Arabella Montclair, daughter of Viscount Elverton, University of St. Andrews alumna, same class as Catherine, known within palace walls as the English Garden Rose, intelligent, gentle, fiercely private, deeply connected to horses, military tradition, environmental causes, a close friend of Zara Tindall. Harry and she first crossed paths at a charity polo event in Cirencester in 2013. They stayed loosely in touch. By late 2015, discreet family discussions reportedly began about whether a courtship should be quietly encouraged. But Harry, at that moment in his life, was drawn to something else entirely. He told his father plainly, "I want to choose love, not what's expected of me." He chose Meghan. Today, Lady Arabella is happily married to a tech sustainability entrepreneur and expecting her second child. The life that could have been feels like a fading photograph. For Harry, the dream of escaping royal rigidity for Californian freedom has, by January 2026, dissolved into something far more cynical and lonely. Public appearances over the last 2 years painted a clear picture. Harry reduced to a supporting role at Meghan's side. The Ripple of Hope Gala in New York 2023, the Women of Vision Awards 2024, the Invictus documentary launch 2025. He stood off-center on red carpets, rarely speaking, smiling politely while Meghan commanded the spotlight. He looked like a royal coat rack with good intentions, a former Netflix staffer who worked closely with the couple said. Charming, well-meaning, but clearly adrift, lost in someone else's narrative. In private conversations, some of which have now leaked to close military friends from his army days, Harry admitted the toll. "I used to be a man with a mission. Now I'm just supporting cast, a prop in someone else's show." The cracks were no longer hidden, and the palace, quietly but firmly, had already turned the page. But the real storm wasn't in London. It was brewing thousands of miles away in Montecito, where trust was crumbling, secrets were surfacing, and the marriage that once symbolized escape was beginning to feel like a new kind of prison. By early 2024, the golden light of the California dream had turned harsh and unflattering. Prince Harry, once celebrated as a decorated military officer, a passionate advocate for mental health, and the rebellious but beloved spirit of the royal family, was struggling to recognize the man in the mirror. Publicly, he was increasingly overshadowed by Meghan's expanding media and branding empire. Privately, the man who once spoke so powerfully about authenticity now found himself fading into the background of someone else's story. The signs were everywhere if you knew where to look. Harry was absent from key launches tied to Meghan's personal brand. He appeared subdued during Netflix press tours, silent at galas where she was the center of attention. At home in Montecito, insiders describe a growing unease around parenthood. Archie had turned 5, Lilibet was barely 3, and beginning to show signs of emotional distress from frequent separations and inconsistent routines. According to multiple sources who worked closely with the household, Harry repeatedly asked Meghan to scale back her relentless travel schedule. "The children need more stability," he reportedly said. "They need both of us here." Meghan's response, per those same sources, was dismissive. "This is regressive thinking, patriarchal. We have DVU in tandem. We share responsibilities." But the tension went deeper than schedules. The gifts began arriving, unexplained, extravagant, and frequent. A diamond-studded necklace delivered by private courier, designer handbags, silk scarves, even a custom sculpture. No invoices, no clear sender details. When Harry questioned them, Meghan allegedly brushed it off. "PR gestures from luxury brands, brand partnerships, you know how this works." But Harry wasn't buying it. "These weren't one-time things," a former estate employee confided. "They kept coming, sometimes 2 or 3 in a week." She'd smile that same confident smile and say it was all promotional, but he knew. Deep down, he knew something wasn't right. Whispers began circulating in elite circles about an elusive Gulf-based mogul, a financier known for backing high-profile media ventures and for his interest in collecting global muses. Though never photographed directly with Meghan, multiple insiders confirmed at least 3 closed-door meetings with his representatives in late 2024, always under the guise of philanthropic cooperation. One such meeting reportedly took place just 20 hours after Harry made a solo appearance at a charity event in Santa Barbara. He returned home looking exhausted, red-eyed, completely alone. Harry eventually confronted her directly. He asked for clear boundaries, transparency, trust. The response? Laughter. "You're acting fragile," she allegedly said, "like a remnant of the golden cage you escaped. You're becoming the very thing you ran from." The words cut deep, because in that moment, Harry reportedly felt the sickening realization he had traded one form of control for another. By August 2025, after months of mounting strain, Harry took the step few thought possible. He quietly filed for unilateral divorce in Santa Barbara County, case number 25DR3381. Grounds: irreconcilable ethical and emotional differences. The filing was public for just 72 hours before being sealed under private custodial review. Meghan's team was blindsided. They immediately pushed for mediated reconciliation. Then came the turning point that stopped Harry in his tracks. A photo arrived on his phone. Lilibet in a hospital gown during a brief respiratory illness scare. Tiny, fragile, hooked to monitors. The image shattered him. The next morning, he withdrew the divorce motion. For the children. Always for the children. Court-mandated mediation followed from September to November, overseen by Judge Kimberly Malden in San Luis Obispo County. Harry proposed a bi-continental parenting plan, British education for the children with holiday residencies in the U.S. Meghan rejected it outright. "Britain is a trauma site. The children deserve freedom from legacy burdening." Mediation collapsed. No agreement. But Harry stayed, again, for Archie and Lilibet. The fights at home became relentless. Bedtime, screen time, which language the children should learn first. But the deepest wounds were about trust, and that trust had already evaporated. Meghan's response to every concern, according to leaked voice notes and insider accounts, was elegant gaslighting dressed in empowerment language. "You're paranoid. This is you regressing into outdated Windsor mindset. Your discomfort isn't about me, it's about colonized views of masculine control." By the end of 2025, Harry had withdrawn from public interviews entirely. Their once celebrated projects were faltering, Netflix documentary deals stalled, internal executives reportedly called the content lacking depth and resonance. Spotify canceled their podcast after just one season. Archerwell, their philanthropic foundation, was quietly under audit for donor misallocation and disclosure inconsistencies. Harry was left with no titles, no independent platform, and increasingly, no peace. Then came the podcast moment that sent shockwaves through their inner circle. In a now infamous slip during a recording, Harry said, "Sometimes the person you give your whole world to is the one who believes they made you." At the time, many assumed it was a veiled jab at his father or brother, but in light of later revelations, the meaning shifted. It wasn't about the palace, it was about the person he had chosen to build a new life with. The empire they tried to build outside the crown was unraveling thread by thread. And Harry, once the spare who dreamed of freedom, now found himself trapped in a different kind of cage, one made of optics, performance, and broken promises. The breaking point wasn't a courtroom or a boardroom. It was a quiet ethics forum in Geneva, one microphone, a shaking hand, and a confession that would detonate across the world. January 22, 2026, Geneva, Switzerland. A low-key media ethics forum hosted by a private NGO focused on cross-border information abuse. No red carpet, no handlers, no prepared PR statement, just Harry. He approached the podium with shaking hands and a single page of handwritten notes. The room was small, mostly journalists and academics. No fanfare, no cameras allowed, except the ones that captured everything anyway. "I want to say this clearly," he began, his voice unsteady but determined. "To my father, to my brother, to the institution I once ran from, I was wrong about many things. I was manipulated about others, but I still take full responsibility, and I am sorry." The 3-minute video clip leaked within minutes. It went viral in under an hour, but the apology itself wasn't what shocked the world. What came next was. Harry revealed that he had received an anonymous email from an encrypted Proton Mail account in early January. Attached were multiple PDF documents and 3 audio files. The documents outlined a covert licensing agreement allegedly signed by Meghan in October 2024 with Fremont Media, a boutique California agency specializing in crisis-to-culture brand storytelling. The deal reportedly granted the firm partial rights to create dramatized content based on Meghan's royal experiences, including psychological insights, private reflections, internal family correspondence, and behind-the-scenes details from 2020 to 2022. Nowhere in the agreement was Harry's name listed as co-signatory. Nowhere in their private conversations, he claimed, had she ever disclosed it. Even more disturbing, the audio files. Though their authenticity remains unverified and hotly debated, excerpts quickly spread online. In one clip, Meghan is heard saying, "Kate's silence was the loudest slap I've ever felt." In another, "Charles doesn't get it. Harry will never be his idea of a son again. The firm doesn't protect you, it edits you." Most chilling of all, one recording captures Harry's own voice in the background, quiet, weary, almost defeated. "Maybe we should stop talking like this while the kids are home." The implication was devastating. If genuine, these were private, unconsented recordings of intimate family discussions, repurposed for commercial gain without Harry's knowledge. The palace response? Absolute silence. No statement, no confirmation, no denial, just disciplined restraint. Princess Anne was the first senior royal to speak publicly again, this time in a brief doorstep comment outside a youth equestrian center in Perth. "We've all known a shepherd boy like that, and sadly, sometimes when the wolf finally comes, there's no one left to listen." She didn't name Harry, she didn't have to. Behind palace walls, sources confirm Anne had privately explored non-public arrangements in late 2025, potential frameworks for safe passage, limited child visitation, supervised reunions in rural Gloucester or Balmoral's Western Lodge. She was reportedly the only senior royal who still believed genuine remorse might open a narrow path. But Geneva changed everything. The line was crossed. Prince William's position hardened overnight. The Geneva speech was a burn notice. No more bridges, no more meetings. William views Harry now as compromised beyond repair. Catherine, always the picture of composure, described the revelations privately as predictable and profoundly sad. She urged William to maintain public restraint, no matter the provocation. Harry, meanwhile, had already begun quietly dismantling his California life. 3 senior domestic staff at the Montecito estate were given notice, their contracts settled early. A luxury Range Rover registered to the Archwell Trust was returned to Jaguar UK. A private accountant contacted Tyler Perry's representatives to negotiate the retransfer of partial debt from the couple's 2020 stay at his Beverly Hills mansion. This wasn't downsizing, this was erasure. By the end of the week, Harry had relocated to a modest, privately leased residence in Hampshire, England. No visible security detail, no entourage, no PR machine. Just a handwritten note slipped under the door of a former staff member. "I lost myself, but I found a reason to start again, even if I'm alone." The man who once fled the palace in search of freedom now stood alone, not in exile, but in aftermath, not with anger, but with recognition. The dream had calcified into something colder, and the children, Archie and Lilibet, remained in the center of the storm. January 24th, 2026, Edinburgh, a Commonwealth Armed Services Roundtable. Princess Anne at the podium once more. A journalist asked the question everyone had been waiting for. Is there any path back for Prince Harry to the royal fold? Anne paused. The room went still. "The monarchy is not a boarding house," she said calmly. "You don't return between storms. When one chooses to exit, one accepts the consequences. We can offer privacy. We cannot offer rehabilitation." It was perhaps the most definitive line ever drawn between the House of Windsor and one of its own. Not cruel, just cold, institutional, irreversible. Behind the scenes, Harry had written a private letter to his father, King Charles III. It was never formally delivered. Sources say it remains sealed in his travel chest in Hampshire. But one confidant was given a glimpse of the final paragraph. "I understand now what you meant when you said duty is its own kind of love. I just wish I hadn't learned it too late. I do not ask to return. I only ask to be remembered, not for how I left, but for how I tried to find my way back." No reply came. There never will be. Meanwhile, Meghan showed no sign of retreat. On the very same day Harry's Geneva revelations dominated headlines worldwide, she launched Arc Legacy, a new global platform focused on resilience, equity, and empowered storytelling. The launch video, posted to Instagram and syndicated across women's leadership networks, showed her walking barefoot through a rose garden in white, smiling serenely. The narration was unmistakably hers. Sometimes we have to leave behind the narrative others gave us and write the one we were always meant to live. This is not reinvention, it's restoration. Gone was any mention of Harry. Gone were references to marriage, royalty, titles. Her new bio read simply founder, mother, builder, voice. Earlier, at the Women Who Lead the World Summit in Abu Dhabi, just days before Geneva, Meghan had appeared in a sleek black abaya with a custom Cartier brooch, rumored to be a gift from a Gulf financier. Her speech was magnetic. When you're born into silence, you think love means loyalty. But sometimes love means leaving and becoming your own sovereign. Many interpreted it as a farewell, not just to Harry, but to the entire chapter. A 37-second voice note from Meghan to Harry surfaced privately around the same time. No phone call, no video, just a recording. Please remember that what we had was beautiful in its time, but time changes us, and maybe the best way to love someone is to let them become someone else. Sources say Harry listened to it 17 times in one night. Then he packed his bags for good. The children, Archie, now 6, and Lilibet, 3, remain in Meghan's primary physical custody in Montecito. They attend a private Montessori-style program. Harry has weekly supervised video calls and is permitted quarterly in-person visits, but only in neutral territories approved by both parties. Recently, he declined a scheduled visit in Los Angeles. His reason, shared with a friend: "I won't see them in front of their lenses again, not ever." Princess Anne's office quietly offered limited logistical support, supervised reunions on Crown Estate land in rural areas, always with strict privacy protections. But the message was clear. Our assistance ends where the institution begins. We protect the family name, not individual regret. Harry now lives in Hampshire. He gardens, he walks alone for hours. He writes, not for publication, but for his children. A private manuscript that begins with a boy in a palace and ends not with a return to the throne, but with a simple whisper: "Don't chase crowns, chase peace." The monarchy moves forward, leaner, more focused under William and Catherine's stewardship. Harry is absent from official photos, royal yearbooks, institutional memory. But among the older palace staff, especially those who served Princess Diana, his story lingers. "He wasn't wicked," said one retired footman quietly, "just wounded, and he thought love was supposed to fix that. Sometimes love only shows you where the wound really is." There was no ceremony to mark the final rift. No crown fell dramatically from his head. Just the quiet realization that freedom without clarity is just another kind of prison. And perhaps that is Harry's final lesson, not just for his children, not just for the world watching, but for himself. A prince who runs from duty will always be chased by it. Silence may not be justice, but sometimes it's the only mercy the crown has left. The gates have closed. The phone no longer rings. The whispers from the palace have gone still. For Prince Harry, once second son, once brother, once husband, once duke, the dream is over. But in the quiet aftermath, far from California's canyons and royal hedges, a broken man walks alone, and perhaps at last begins to find peace.